Doom has more ports than you can shake a stick at. Now, I have the serious problem of wanting to own all of the ports, even the rubbish ones. Hell, I'd get the SNES port, and that's borderline unplayable.
Nintendo didn't have a particularly good track record with Doom ports, with the Famicom and SNES ports, and the Nintendo 64 got Doom 64, which isn't even a port, it's a completely new game, so Nintendo missed out when it came to the original Doom. Though I would rather play the Famicom port over the Saturn and 3DO versions. The Atari Jaguar port of Doom was key in paving the way for many versions of the game. The Sega 32X, Saturn, 3DO and PlayStation ports all used the same build as the Jaguar, as it made use of different maps that had been slightly altered from the originals. But what is my favourite port? Just before the Jaguar, it's the Game Boy Advance port, released in 2001. It's really impressive that in just over 5 years, a handheld console is able to play a game that a fully fledged home console could barely run, even with a Super FX chip. Doom for the GBA is my favourite way to play Doom on the go, despite the fact that I have the more powerful mobile ports that just released last year. I guess I love having a physical version of the game, good old cartridges. GBA Doom has a very smooth frame rate unless you're playing on the Nightmare difficulty. This absolutely annihilates the game's frame rate as the number of enemies has dramatically increased. The Nightmare difficulty isn't even the same as it was on PC, as enemies no longer respawn. This was likely due to it putting a lot of strain on the engine, so now Nightmare is more like the Ultraviolence difficulty. Things in the distance also appear quite pixelated. It's definitely not supposed to be played on a big screen, as it looks way better on a smaller screen, the type it was designed for. Luckily, enemies stand out from the background, appearing quite bright. They aren't also affected by the ambient lighting. There's also an option to toggle off the lighting, and I'm assuming that was included as the original GBA model didn't have a backlit screen, so the brighter lighting made it easier to see what you were shooting at. Taking a deeper look at the visuals, the game looks more like Doom than a lot of the other ports in the 90s did. GBA Doom is based off the Jaguar ports, but it looks like it uses more textures from the PC original, though they have switched around a lot of them.
Jaguar Doom seemed to use textures from Doom 2, which made the game look way more brown than it originally did. GBA Doom doesn't quite share this sentiment.
Seeing as it's based off the Jaguar port, it shares the same altered maps. There are no ceiling crushers, which isn't exactly everyone's favourite part of Doom, so I'm not missing them. It also lacks a few levels. It's also missing the Cyber Demon and Spider Mastermind bosses. I'll be honest, this doesn't bother me. It's not like they're the pinnacle of Doom's gameplay, requiring less strategy than some of the most basic enemies in the game. You just shoot them. Fortunately, all enemies are capable of facing in multiple directions, which a few ports were unable to do. But in GBA Doom, enemies bleed green blood. I obviously prefer the red blood, but I'm not particularly bothered by this either. I'm more bothered that cacodemons bleed green blood when shot, but their death animation still gives them blue blood. This is a similar problem to the original game, where cacodemons bled red until dead. It's the sort of thing that once you've seen it, you can't exactly unsee it. It's more of a nitpick rather than a legitimate complaint though, so make of that what you will. Another nitpick I have is the HUD, as the weapon is too low down behind it. I really don't understand why this has been done. It's probably just a simple mistake. I just can't decide whether it looks better than having the weapons too high up on like the SNES port. The text is also slightly different from the other ports. Even Doom 2 on GBA is different, but the font is the same. But they've also put like a semi-ugly white border on the text, which I don't think was really necessary. It's not like you need to do a lot of reading in Doom. It just makes the text look chunky and ugly, and Doom 2 doesn't have it, and people seem perfectly happy with that port. One thing that I don't like is the fact that bodies disappear quicker than you can say, "Where'd that body go?" This is likely done to help the game run smoother, but it's a shame regardless. And something I definitely don't like is how saving works. You can only save between levels, never during them. This can be annoying, as when you die in a level, you can lose quite a lot of the progress you made. And if you accidentally forget to save between levels, you're stuffed because there's no level select feature in the main menu, like so many other ports. You can only select separate levels through cheat codes, which takes ages if you're trying to get to a specific one. I don't know if these features were omitted because it would have been too much of a strain on the game's engine, but either way, it's just a real shame it isn't there. But, moving back onto the positives, the music is suitably awesome, if a little flawed. The music sounds more 8-bit rather than 32-bit, which is what the Game Boy Advance is. 32-bit. It is a little strange that they chose to go with this approach, considering Doom 2 sounds like a straight-up recreation of the PC version's soundtrack, and other GBA games have had music that sounds almost like a GameCube game, like Metroid Zero Mission. Though I think a few tracks sound awesome in 8-bit form. Another point of contention when it came to the music was arguably the single most important track in Doom's almost 30-year history, At Doom's Gate, which isn't played in the game. Well, it is, but only in the game's secret level. That's weird. Every track in the game is played out of order, meaning Phobos Anomaly isn't a tense build-up to the reveal of the Barons of Hell. Now it makes you feel excited rather than afraid. Not that Doom can make you feel afraid anymore, but you know what I mean. The controls in the game are amazing though, and it's probably the best aspect of it. I played all the way through the game on the DS and then revisited it on the Game Boy Micro, and the controls were equally great on both systems, though the Micro can be a little cramped on occasion. You strafe with the left and right triggers, and you can choose what buttons you want to shoot with and open doors with. I wasn't sure about switching between weapons to begin with, as you have to hold down both triggers and press up or down on the D-pad to go between all your weapons. Though I thought it would be quite slow, but it grew on me over time. They're also very responsive, even when the frame rate takes a nosedive.
So, Doom for the GBA. Is it good? Is it bad? It's great. Despite its flaws, it's Doom at the end of the day. What more do you want? It's still perfectly playable, despite the at times slow frame rate. And I'm sure you can accept the fact that the Cyber Demon boss isn't exactly the be-all and end-all of Doom. Doom for the GBA is Doom, pure and simple. Now, Doom 2 for the GBA is a different story. It isn't even based on the same engine as the original Doom for GBA, it makes use of a new engine. But considering they didn't cut anything out of this game, this could be the most impressive game ever released. I guess I'll just have to take a look at it in the next video, so I'll see you then.